Good evening. Welcome to another episode, if you will. Episode. What do you call this? An episode, or we call it a issue? It's not an issue. Another meeting, I guess, of what we call our game changers. My name is Jeff Scandridge, and I serve as the managing director of the Conductor. We're glad that you're here. I want to make sure that if you're joining us via Facebook Live or Zoom, if you have any questions, you can send those via the Zoom chat. You can put them in the Facebook comments. If you are joining via Facebook Live or Zoom, you are missing out on a pretty good spread here. So maybe next month you'll want to join us in person so that you can participate in the good vittles we have when we do Game Changers. So tonight it is our honor and pleasure to be here with Clint O'Neill. You're going to learn a little bit about Clint. I'm going to spare the introduction because he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. To start with, Clint, it's good to have you with us today.
Yeah, Jeff, happy to be here.
So Clint, we're going to dig into Clint O'Neill as the professional and what you do on a daily basis. But before we do that, just tell us a little bit. Help us get to know you, where you grew up, family, and maybe bring us up to where you are today, work-wise, and kind of fill in the gaps for us.
Okay, sounds good. Well, good evening, everyone. Really happy to be here, have an informal conversation. Went back and listened to some of the previous episodes of Game Changers. Had some excellent guests, so I'm very honored to be among the group here. But I grew up here in Central Arkansas in Saline County, and unincorporated Saline County, like out in the country, a place called Salem. Fantastic neighborhood that we had growing up. I mean, one of those that no one had heard of a cell phone, and you just became friends with those that were in your neighborhood. Went and knocked on doors, and you got to pick up baseball and basketball games going, and so I love my childhood. Great family. Went to Bryant High School. I'm like one of those, you hear about people going into higher education without a real game plan. And I figured the higher education bad decision movement needed a spokesperson, a poster boy, and so I volunteered for that. But I came here to UCA, and I absolutely love my time at UCA. I created friendships here at UCA that at the time, that was absolutely the best days of my life. It kept getting better from there, so that would be a little pathetic if that was the peak. But had such a fantastic time here at UCA. I graduated with a degree in psychology, and I think somewhere along the way, I got the impression that just come get a 4-year degree in something, and then great things would work out, and I realized that was not quite the case. So from there, I went to a graduate degree program that I was not sure why I went. It was a master's degree in social work. I really have a heart to help people, and I thought that's how I wanted to apply that professionally. As it turns out, that was not for me. And so I would probably say one of the worst decisions was starting that program. One of my best decisions was dropping out of that program. Just saying, I will do something else, anything else. That's not it.
That's kind of like people say owning a boat. The best day of your life is when you buy it, and the second best day is when you sell it.
Right. So that year, I was working a lot of odd jobs. I got a non-traditional teacher license through the state of Arkansas through taking a series of tests. I became a junior high math and science teacher for a couple of years. And then my wife and I got married in between those 2 years of teaching, and my wife and I spent our second year of marriage in South Korea teaching English. Had a fantastic time, loved the country, loved the people, would have stayed for longer, but kind of recognized need to come home and get some sort of career going before we start a family. And so I came back and I enrolled in a program here that no longer exists, but it was called the Masters of Science in Community and Economic Development here at UCA. Actually started a couple of the correspondence courses from South Korea, came back and finished that graduate degree program. Was looking for a way to get into economic development. I was working in sales, and my oldest daughter, Chloe, is here with us tonight. She was born in 2007, a year that I got into economic development, and we had our first daughter, but my wife Heather and I have been married for 17 years, and now have 4 kids. She was the only one I could talk into to come in with me tonight. But I was at AEDC, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, as a project manager for 4 years, and then took a job in Kansas City. We moved there and lived there for about 7 years, and have been back for a little over 3 years.
Gotcha. Tell us about the role you played at the Missouri
Partnerships.
Yeah, tell us about that role.
Yeah, so there's 16 states in the country that have privatized a portion of their state economic development team, and Missouri is one of those 16 states. So different models, some that cover the span of including tourism and business attraction and business expansion and workforce development. Missouri adopted a rather small model where they privatized marketing and business attraction. So the Missouri Department of Economic Development, located in Jefferson City, not exactly the center of commerce in Missouri, recognized that they needed a strong marketing and business attraction arm with a team in major metropolitan areas. And so I was our Kansas City field office. The rest of the team was in St. Louis, but we had 4 recruiters on the team. I was one of the recruiters, and we marketed Missouri for business attraction purposes. Spent a lot of time traveling. So in that role, was very limited. Did not work with existing businesses on expansion projects. Didn't work with small businesses or entrepreneurs. It was exclusively business attraction. So it was a lot of working with communities on available real estate. It was hosting prospects in the state, and so we worked in close collaboration with the state of Missouri doing that.
I want to go back. We're going to come back and talk about your role with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and how you transitioned from Missouri back to Arkansas. Glad you did, by the way. But before we do that, let's talk about Korea. You taught English in Korea, so take us through that experience.
What a fantastic experience, and one that we did very little research going in. So there was a couple at our church at the time who we had run into some brick walls. My wife majored in Spanish education. We were looking for an opportunity to go to a Spanish-speaking country and just couldn't quite find the right opportunity. So rather than giving up, this couple in our church said, a few years back, we went to South Korea. We taught English. There are placement agencies that you pick the part of the country and you pick the age, and they will place you in a school. And they'll pay for your flight, and they'll pay for your apartment, and they'll pay you a small stipend, which is, at that age, having no bills was it was a good deal. And so we went to South Korea. We taught anywhere from kindergartners to middle school. It was called a Hagwon. It was a private school in South Korea. A lot of children go through. This would be kind of what we might equate to an after-school program. So they would do a combination of public school and private school. They would go to their public school, and then they would do piano lessons and taekwondo lessons and English lessons. And Korean families place a very high priority, not only on education, but having their children learn English. And so we lived in a large city just outside of Seoul called Bucheon. It was far enough away from the United States military base where everybody in the city knew that we were there as English teachers. There would be no other reason for you to be here. And so English teachers are held in very high regard, very well respected. We created friendships, and we loved our time there. I'll share one story of a scary moment, just living in a culture and in a place where you don't know the language. So we're the only English speakers in our building. We lived on the 20th floor of a 25-story apartment building. We would come home every day for lunch. It was a short walk. So we're at home, and over the speaker system, the building folks come over and they make an announcement. And so they would do this from time to time. Maybe it's recycling night, or I don't know what he said. That doesn't really matter. It seems like when Koreans speak, there's always a little bit of an urgency in their voice. And so we picked up on that, but thought, we'll figure it out. We stay a solid 10 or 15 minutes before we take the elevator down to find 8 or 10 fire trucks, people outside, and there's a universal stare for, wow, what an idiot. And and as we walk out of our apartment building, we got that stare, and so we walked back to our school and had our principal call, and they said, yeah, the building's on fire, and we made this announcement. And so we dodged a bullet.
How was your lunch? Yeah, I've had an experience like that in Poland, where I didn't know if I was getting on the last train to Krakow or the last train to Moscow, and so I understand. What did you learn about Korea? What did you learn professionally? What was maybe a learning you could share with us from that experience?
Yeah, what an economic miracle has been experienced in South Korea, and study just a little bit of what happened after the Korean War and look at these maps of Korea at night with South Korea just lit up, and the commerce activity, the electricity, the everything that's going on in South Korea. And then unfortunately, because of dictators, bad decisions, you name it, what has happened in North Korea. But South Korean, families are so focused on the success of their children. And I would say that that's good, but it also has disadvantages. Unfortunately, there were some children that we met who would tell us that, it's basically an even playing field in kindergarten. And after that, you start to get ranked, and you get put into the best, smartest kids go in certain first grade track, and then on down the line. Once you get locked in a track, it's really hard to move up. And so there's so much pressure on children in South Korea. We could probably use a little bit more pressure in America, right? But it's hard to break those ranks. And I really felt sorry for those kids that were in that position who would, there would be middle school and high school children who thought, it's too late for me. I can't be as successful as an adult as I would have otherwise been had I been more successful previous in my life. Whereas, here you've got a bunch of, college dropout billionaires that had an idea and ran with it. But overall, just the spirit of teamwork in South Korea is phenomenal. The way that they take care of each other. I'll give you an example that's it's maybe a little funny, but it demonstrates how this country is progressing as a team. So, here in America, if you take your child to a park and they're playing on the playground and there's other kids playing on the playground, if there's some kid screwing around, you might think to yourself, man, I'd like to go slap that kid. But you're not actually going to do it. You discipline your own children, and you leave it up to other parents to discipline their own children. Not in South Korea. If some kid's screwing around, somebody's going to go correct that kid. And so my wife and I would always joke when we were, in situations like that, of like, I'm about to go Korean on that kid over there. But,
I would not have gotten along well at that age in South Korea. But lots of correction.
I think you see that across just the spirit of teamwork. Of we are going to be successful, and we're going to hold each other accountable. And I think you see the incredible innovation in South Korean companies that have taken this country, in the last 7 decades or so from such a primitive country to one of the world's leading economies.
So you were there when you started taking correspondence with the Community and Economic Development. What led you to want to get an economic development? So psychology degree, a stint in social work, now you're teaching English in South Korea, and I want to get into economic development. Talk us through that decision.
Yeah, it was kind of, how can my life have impact, and how can I be influential, maybe not at a micro level of doing things like counseling or social work or always sitting one-on-one. I think there's plenty of time for that in everyone's personal life, in their network of friends and family. But how can I still take this dream that I have to make the world a better place, to help my state, help communities, and do that on a macro level. And so there's so many intriguing things that about this program. The Masters of Science in Community and Economic Development, UCA did such a fantastic job pulling in professionals and experts and professors in that area that I enjoyed every class in the program. I was very eager to jump in.
And how long was it before you ended back up at the AEDC?
So it was actually started a couple months before I graduated the program, and then I was there for 4 years before.
Gotcha. And then took the job in Missouri.
Yes.
And now you've been back at the AEDC since
March of 18.
Of 18.
3.5 years.
So talk us through the role that you have there now and what your normal day looks like in terms of your activities.
Sure. So Arkansas Economic Development Commission, we split into basically two parts. So as of the state transformation that occurred starting in July of 2019, Arkansas Economic Development Commission is a part of the Arkansas Department of Commerce. So we share resources, staff are in together with other divisions like the Division of Workforce Services and the Housing Development Finance group, the Office of Skills Development, as well as the regulatory agencies of securities, insurance, banking, Arkansas Waterways, specifically in the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Mike Cresson is the Secretary of the Department of Commerce and the Executive Director of AEDC. I serve as the Deputy Director of what we call global business. So that encompasses business development, marketing, existing business. It encompasses our small business and entrepreneurship development division. It encompasses film, military affairs, and minority and women-owned businesses. And then the other side of the house is kind of the grants, finance, and the things that make us work with IT, HR, functions like that, led by my counterpart, Jim Hudson.
So for folks who don't understand the role of economic developers and the role of economic development, talk us through that and explain, what's the mission of the AEDC and what do you guys spend most of your time focused on?
Yeah, so I think you can boil the mission statement of AEDC down to job creation, which facilitates raising the per capita income of Arkansans. So if you look at where jobs come from, I work for the government. The government does not create jobs. Jobs are created by the private sector, by entrepreneurs and small businesses, by existing Arkansas companies that expand, by recruiting new companies into a market. So whether you're representing a city, a county, or a state. And so having strategy and putting some thought into how we grow each of those three pillars, how we support entrepreneurs, how we help existing Arkansas companies, how we recruit new ones, and then some of the other divisions that support those three initiatives with marketing. Marketing Arkansas is a favorable place to do business. I think what we find is that there is a segment of the population that sees Arkansas in an incredible light. They live here, or they have ties to here, or they've had experiences here, and they see Arkansas as the natural state. It's beautiful. It's a low cost of living, high quality of life. There are a lot of things going on there. There are entrepreneurs in Arkansas that have grown up, in Walmart's case, to be Fortune 1. In others' cases, to be Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 or just incredibly successful companies. There's a segment of the population that has a negative outlook on Arkansas. That Arkansas has a high poverty rate, low education attainment levels, that would say, that the toothbrush was invented in Arkansas because you only have one tooth, otherwise it would be called the teeth brush. But you have...
I'll go ahead, y'all like that. That's pretty funny right there.
We are all
Here we're going, should I laugh at that? Can I laugh out loud?
So you have some on one side, you have some on the other side. You have so many people that are in between that you say, tell me what you think about Arkansas. And they say, I don't know much about Arkansas. Arkansas has 40 million people. Of the, 325 million people in our country alone. much less on the global stage. And so with our marketing efforts, we really have the opportunity to fill in the gaps, to fill in those blanks of saying, this is Arkansas. And I think if we can do that successfully, we paint Arkansas in an accurate light. Arkansas is a beautiful state. It's a state where people want to live. It's a place where people are successful. And so with our marketing strategy, rather than having, people that work for a government agency sit around a table and say, what stats can we really wow them with today? It's a strategy of the executive voice. It's let's find people that are successful in doing business in Arkansas and let's amplify their voices, because there's a lot of companies that are finding success. And so I think what you'll find with a lot of our marketing materials on our website, with our social media, with the publications, with everything that we do from a marketing standpoint, it's really to generate momentum. And so I think a lot of companies can appreciate that. I was in Las Vegas last week at an aviation trade show, and I was so encouraged by just the number of people, and a lot of them may have had ties to Arkansas, would stop by our booth, and they would talk about how frustrated they are living in their states, in their cities. You've got some burdensome government regulations, you've got high cost of living, and we provide opportunities in Arkansas to be successful. But you want to create a lot of momentum. Companies in Arkansas are extremely proud to do business in Arkansas, that they're feeling good about that, especially maybe in relation to other facilities that they might have around the country. And we want to work closely with our economic development partners around the state. We're a relatively small team, and economic development really happens at the local level. So it's having great local elected officials, great economic developers in entrepreneurship support organizations and chambers of commerce and economic development organizations that are really out there getting to know the companies, getting to know the entrepreneurs, and selling their community as a place to relocate to.
So that helps us understand really the recruitment aspect. So you talked about the three pillars, the recruiting businesses into Arkansas. Talk a little bit about some of the programs and work that you do in helping existing businesses expand.
Yeah, so our existing business resource division is our largest division at AEDC. It's where the bulk of jobs are going to come from. I think as you look around at any given community or state, as they track their stats over any year, they're going to say, probably 70 to 80% of new jobs are going to come from existing businesses that are finding success in that market, and they decide to expand and decide to add to their headcount. So we had the opportunity actually this morning in Jonesboro to speak before a committee of the Legislature, the Ag, Forestry, and Economic Development Committee. And we did a presentation on existing business resources and talked about what a priority this is. And so we obviously care about jobs all across the state in all industries, but we focus our time a little bit more on primary jobs, those that are exporting goods and services out of their market, a lot of times out of the state, sometimes out of the country. And we work with these companies, whether they be manufacturers, distribution centers, technology companies, corporate headquarters. And so, one of the things that we've done over the last few years is with our team, our EBRD team, our existing business team, is to go around to a lot of these companies and just really take the pulse of the company. What's the culture of the workplace? What's the retention rates, and what are the pain points? And so it's through surveys like that we gain this information that helps to drive our initiatives, help drive our workforce development initiative. One of the initiatives that we've stood up over the last couple of years is called Future Fit. So we had so many manufacturers around the state saying that there's a skills gap in their company, in their community, in the state, in the country. It's similar in a lot of places. And so we need engineers, we need people at all levels, but what we really need is we need to create a solid pipeline of entry-level production workers that we can put on a career ladder to move into higher stages of leadership within our organization. And we don't need a 4-year degree or oftentimes even a 2-year degree. And so we sat down with a group of companies and said, we want to do we want this workforce development program to be industry-led, industry-designed. We don't want to be a workforce development group that says, we think this will help, good luck. We want industry to design this. And so a group of manufacturers from around the state worked closely with our EBRD team to create what we call Future Fit. They said, if we could take an individual with a high school diploma or a GED that has passed the career readiness certificate and has about 100 hours of classroom instruction that they helped us design, soft skills, basics of working on a manufacturing floor, how to read a measuring tape, other things like that. We could put an individual like that to work on a career ladder, and that gives us something solid to work with. So we've had a few hiccups with COVID, as we have other things, but we've now rolled this out in 8 community colleges around the state and are starting to see some really encouraging stories. I think the ideal profile for someone going through a program like this is maybe someone who didn't have a plan post high school, maybe even dropped out of high school or dropped out of community college. We've heard stories of maybe those that are working minimum wage, retail or restaurant job that showed the initiative, and after 100 hours classroom training that can be done in a few weeks, they're starting at $15, $16 an hour with these companies that have said, we want to put you on a career ladder to go higher. And so it's things like that we really want to work in close partnership with companies around the state.
So we talked about recruiting new businesses. We talked about the work you do to expand existing businesses. You just reconstituted a new division called the Entrepreneurship and Small Business Division. Talk to us a little bit about that and the role of that division.
Yeah, so this is something that we're very excited about. We had the opportunity through COVID, so as everybody recalls the timeline of the first case coming out in March, it was of 20, and so it was in April of 2020 when we had some funding available through the CARES Act from the federal government that went through the states. It was late April that we had some guidance from Treasury on how to use this money. And so we created this program called Ready for Business, and we had such a tremendous response, and it gave our team at the Arkansas Economic Development Commission really an opportunity to work outside the bounds that we are normally confined in with the incentive tools that we have that are to specific industries, looking at specific NAICS codes. And so we started working with small businesses everywhere, and it was something where, I think, our team, we set up this makeshift call center in our office, and you're hearing the heartbeat of Arkansans. You're hearing from entrepreneurs that are worried about keeping their business. You're hearing from small businesses, and I think through that process, really, it gave us the opportunity to think, okay, we have incentive tools for small businesses and entrepreneurs. We have some things that we park within our Science and Technology division at AEDC. We have a minority and women-owned business group that we have some resources for. And then we have a business development team that's often a community's first contact when they call us. It's often when we meet with businesses. And but what we do a lot of times with small businesses or with entrepreneurs is, we kind of realize we could be a lot more efficient with the existing resources that we have. So we said, hey, how about instead of servicing entrepreneurs and small businesses from different things parked in different divisions, let's create a new division called Small Business and Entrepreneurship Development. So we named Catherine Andrews, who was a project manager on our business development team, as our division director. So she's really gone to work she has created, working with our marketing team, a fantastic resource page on our website that really just walks through some resources, where to turn when you're looking to start a business. Here are some of our resource partners, how to register a business with the state of Arkansas, just some of the basics of small business and entrepreneurship. Has really done a great job of going around the state, building relationships with the small business and technology development centers, with the groups like the Conductor and Startup Junkie and many others, and is really just trying to raise the profile of entrepreneurship statewide.
So what do you think is on the horizon for the AEDC in terms of any or all of those three?
So, if you talk to companies, regardless of size, the thing that we're hearing now, which I'm sure is, very familiar with everybody in the room, is we can't find people. We need people. And so we partnered with the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism recently to roll out a talent recruitment and relocation initiative. We try to be careful not to use the word campaign. If you think about a marketing campaign, it's, let's blitz a digital marketing ad for 6 or 8 weeks and see how it works. We really hope that we're building this initiative that's going to be meaningful to communities all around the state of Arkansas, because we really need to add to our population. We need to add people that come in and fill jobs. It's going to help with all three of these areas. And I think that we have a great opportunity with whether it be jobs that are here that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago when somebody last had a touch point with Arkansas, or we're checking things out, or there's a lot of remote work opportunities where a lot of people are finding this opportunity in the first time in their professional career to decouple where they work from where they live. And so if you work for a company in a big city that has said, we're not going back to the office, you can work remotely, it gives people the opportunity to say, do I want to stay in this big city and pay these rent prices? Or do I want to take this same amount of money that I'm earning and move to a place where there's higher quality of life, incredible outdoor amenities, lower cost of living? Maybe I can actually raise my kids in a home with a yard instead of a very small apartment. And so we're rolling this out, and we've always kind of said that the further this gets away from us, the more impact that it will have. So the creation of these assets, a video promoting living in Arkansas, regional testimonial videos of people talking about moving to various parts of the state, cost relocation calculator, all parked on this webpage that we're promoting for Arkansans that take that and share with their networks out of state. And so that's one initiative that we're really putting a lot of thought behind. A few of the thoughts is within business recruitment, our pipeline is stronger now than it's been in a long time. And you'll see a couple of very significant economic development announcements here in Central Arkansas over the next week. It's going to be incredibly encouraging that the companies are taking note of the opportunities that Arkansas provides. So I think that we'll continue to do all we can in these three areas. But building that momentum and finding people to fill those jobs is going to be a big part of it.
We're here with Clint O'Neill tonight. Clint is the executive VP of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. For those of you who have joined us via Facebook Live or Zoom, we would encourage you to put your questions in the chat or in the comments, and they will provide those to us here in the room, and we'll get those in front of Clint. So we'll be taking questions from the floor here and from our online channels shortly. Clint, let's shift a little bit to leadership. So you lead a big division, or a big part of the ADC. How many employees in the section were you're responsible?
35 total, at 9 direct reports.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about what would they say about Clint O'Neill and his leadership style, or what do you hope they say? No, let's do what would they say.
Well,
because we've asked several of them.
I think that they would say, I would hope that they would say that we hire people that we trust. And I truly do have a fantastic group of colleagues. And so, I think life goes well for me when I let the team do their job instead of me saying, hey, let me be a part of this. I think in leadership, there's to steal a saying from Craig Rochelle, a pastor of Life Church that has a leadership podcast, that people would rather follow a leader that's real than even one that's always right. And I think just that authenticity of, I think if you go around saying that, you have this grand vision and you have it figured out and you're just on your A game every day, If you're fake, even in the smallest bit, I mean, people smell that, and it's such a turnoff. And so, I think, I would hope that those that I really pour my time into, the 9 that are my direct reports, would say, we're going to be lifelong friends, and we're going to stay connected whether we're working together or not, because we've built something. We've been in the trenches together. We've been real with one another, and I would hope that they say that Clint believes in me, that there is a degree of autonomy that especially with the division directors, you are leading this initiative for AEDC. You are better at your job than I would be at your job, and so go and run with it, and let me know how I can help you. And so I think it's those times where leadership works best when I'm not in that role of micromanaging, but I'm in that role of championing and removing barriers and letting people be successful.
Where'd you learn those leadership skills, do you think?
I think it's been a lot of just great leaders that I've had the opportunity to work under. So I'm 41, and I was 37 when I took on this job. I had never been in a leadership role before I took on this job. Certainly as a recruiter and as a project manager, I mean, you're leading teams, but not at an organizational standpoint. And I've just been very fortunate to have some good leaders, whether it be leaders in the community, pastors that I look up to, people that I've worked for. There was a guy that I worked for at the Missouri Partnership who I just love his leadership style, and if I'm ever in question, it's just kind of like, hey, what would Steve Johnson do? And so there was a time that he would never publicly say anything to criticize anybody, but go out for coffee and very gently, it's kind of where my daughter Chloe and I were talking about this saying on the way over here, that everything I say should be true, but not everything that's true should be said. And Steve I remember one time he would tell me, hey, Clint, there's times in staff meetings where you say things, and maybe they're true. Maybe we could do a better job at some of these areas, but you're hurting people's feelings, and you need to know that. And just kind of those subtle reminders and subtle tips, I think has really led to me saying, I want to be a leader like some of the leaders that I've had the opportunity to be in a relationship with.
Give us that quote again.
Everything I say should be true, but not everything that's true should be said.
That's good. That's good. I wrote that one down, by the way. You've given us a little bit of a sense of this next question, but I'm going to just ask you, what are Clint O'Neill's core values?
So I guess pretty easy to answer. We have hanging on our hanging in our dining room. We went through this exercise as a family, where we said we really need a family mission statement, because we kind of need to wake up every day knowing who we are and what we're aiming toward. And so it says, Team O'Neill, established 2004, be thankful and honest, joyful and fearless, work, pray, serve, play, Jesus is Lord. And so I think those words are so important. As I look at that on a daily basis, it starts with be thankful. I mean, there are times when the chaos of trying to manage a lot of things in professional and personal life that I know for me, I can just kind of steer toward this bad attitude. But to kind of get back to, these are my core values. I'm going to be thankful. I'm going to serve my God. I'm going to go by what I see here that we've predetermined. This is what my life's going to be all about.
So I know you and I've had some conversations about the intersection of faith and work, and not everyone is of the same faith that you and I have, and we work with people who are from different religions, but how do you approach the intersection of faith and work in your career, working in a government organization?
Yeah, so I would say that day to day, it's grinding it out. There's it's an interesting conversation that I've had with a lot of friends, and I've had friends tell me that we spend time in the break room or out on the job, and there's a big lull, and so you're talking about family and you're talking about what's important to you, and I don't know, I just don't have one of those jobs. I mean, our day-to-day life is about, it's about the strategic initiatives that we're driving toward. It's about companies that are calling saying, I'm dissatisfied with this incentive package. It's can you find real estate? And so I would say that there are times where people might come to me and say, hey, I want to ask you a question. I see that you're a Christian, you live that out, I want to ask you a question. And so I'm certainly open to that. I don't use the workplace as an opportunity to say, man, today I just really hope to have a conversation about religion. I mean, that's not it. Our workplace and those that are on our team, like you said, there's people of a lot of different religions and a lot of different outlooks on life. And the common mission of our team is our professional mission statement. It's not my family core value mission statement. It's our team mission statement of job creation and job creation at a rate that raises the per capita income of Arkansans. So I think it's a balance of just how I live my life in a way that honors God, and people of all different backgrounds. I would hope would look and say, he respects me and he respects everyone else around him.
Very good, very good. We'll take some questions now, if we have any from our online channels. We'll take some from the room as well. Any questions for Clint, or comments or observations? Yes, sir.
Did you find much difference between, I know you weren't an executive level in Missouri, but the nature of the work was similar, I'm assuming. What do you have that might compare what they do in Missouri versus here? I assume it was a learning experience for you.
Absolutely. So,
You might repeat that a little bit.
Yeah, so the question was basically the differences in economic development in Arkansas versus Missouri. It's a fair summary, and kind of how I saw that from my experience. A major difference is Missouri has about twice the population with some major metro areas of St. Louis and Kansas City, and so there are going to be economic development opportunities. Sorry, your question has me all choked up. There are going to be opportunities in Missouri, especially in those large major metro areas, that we might not necessarily see in Arkansas. If it's a company with a higher job headcount that might feel a little bit more confident looking in a more populated area. But one of the biggest ways is just organizationally. So we run our economic development efforts out of the executive branch, out of state government, out of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. We do have what's called the Arkansas Economic Development Foundation, which is very helpful. It's a raising private funds that helps us to market Arkansas and do some things that we could not do with taxpayer dollars. And so if we're going to host a reception and have alcohol, or if we're going to take guests somewhere that to a sports event or something like that may not necessarily be paid with taxpayer dollars, we have that to draw on. The Arkansas Economic Development Foundation has a board but not a staff. In Missouri, like I mentioned, it's one of the 16 states that has a staff that raises private dollars in order to carry out economic development activities. From a business climate standpoint, Very similar. Missouri's a low tax, low cost of living state. We compete now with Missouri as we compete against all states. But I think the competition is maybe a little different than it might be in the sports arena or in the business arena. We want our neighboring states to be successful. We want our country to be successful. It's not, it's not that, we would be satisfied in Arkansas if every surrounding state started to go downhill. So we compete on projects, but we really want everybody to be successful. It makes for a good business climate in a greater region. I would say from a deal-making standpoint, from an incentive standpoint, Missouri has what I would call stronger statutory incentives. So in other words, if you create, say, 50 jobs at $20 an hour, you're going to statutorily, without negotiating, get a better incentive package in Missouri than you would statutory incentives in Arkansas. We have the tools to be more aggressive with discretionary incentives than Missouri does. And so economic development deals tend to be, it's a little bit more of a deal-making state in Arkansas with some of the discretionary incentive tools that we have.
Very good. Other questions?
Hi. Do you ever work with OSP to help lower the barrier of entry for Arkansas businesses to get the bigger contracts instead of out-of-state businesses coming in and getting those contracts?
Yeah, with the
Repeat
state,
that.
we work with the Office of State Procurement on contracts. We do, and there are, we want Arkansas businesses to, at minimum, be given a fair shake. We want Arkansas businesses to be successful, and so, working with Ed Armstrong and the team at Procurement, I mean, that's been a part of the conversation before. I think, some of the challenges with that can be we as a state and our procurement still kind of have to look at sort of the free market of where we procure the best products and services at the best price. I mean, we've even had companies sit across the table from us and say, we will create jobs in Arkansas if Arkansas buys everything that we create, that we produce. And we think, well, it's interesting that you want us to give you incentives for creating jobs and then buy back everything. And we've even entered into some agreements along that line on a limited basis in working with procurement. But a lot of times it's more, let's create a great business climate. Let's have Arkansas companies be successful, and certainly let's give them a strong look at procurement. But also, especially if we're sitting across from the table that says, I'll only create jobs if you'll buy my product, and we're saying, well, we don't know that you're necessarily going to have the best product at the best price. And so create some of those conflicts at times.
One more question. Anybody? All right. Well, I have one. So we have a number of students who both come in person and or tune in to our archives, and they'll be seeing this online. What would you say to students who never really thought about a career in economic development, but it sounds really interesting to them? Maybe they have thought about a career in economic development, but what advice would you give them?
Call me. We have some openings.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
This is, the world of economic development is there's not, in sum total, a whole lot of jobs out there. I mean, it's like every community may have a couple of economic development jobs at the Chamber of Commerce or at City Hall or economic development organizations. There are economic development job opportunities, a lot of times at utility companies, certainly at the state level. I'm kind of one of the rare ones in economic development that actually went through an education program geared toward that. I mean, we have people in our office that have their MBA or have a background in public administration or accounting or real estate. You can find your way into economic development from a wide array of educational pathways. Psychology, yep. Don't let anybody in. I think when people start to kind of learn what we do, especially kind of on this competitive front of marketing Arkansas and kind of what goes behind that, how do we best position Arkansas to have this image as a great place to live and do business, kind of creating these community development initiatives that help communities prepare for business development activities, how to lay the groundwork one of my favorite things about this job, which I would love to kind of walk somebody through, is when you pick up a prospect at the airport who's coming to Arkansas for the very first time, you have the opportunity to spend a couple of days with them, showcasing Arkansas communities, getting to know them personally, and just selling, knowing that they're going to go on from there and go on to different states, and they're going to get that experience in other places. We have project managers on our team that have such a competitive edge to them, and we want to be the best at customer service. We want to be the best at what we do, and so I think if any of that is of interest, students at UCA, I would be happy to connect them with our team. And we had 4 interns this past summer that spent the summer with us, and all 4 were just absolutely fantastic. And I think really gained that passion for what we do, and whether it be an internship or just kind of a job shadow for a day or just a conversation or us sending out some materials, we would certainly enjoy the opportunity to elevate the profile of our profession.
So it's might as well take the next step. You got some open positions. What are those?
Yeah, so
off the top of your head.
Well, we have a couple of positions actually in business development. So project manager that would play that role of key salesperson for the state of Arkansas. So if an existing business calls and says, okay, we're going to add jobs here, or we're going to add jobs at a facility in another state, they're the quarterback. They're the ones that rally the internal resources and are the face of the agency for that. If it's a business attraction project, they're the ones that are the single point of contact. And so a couple opening positions there in business development. We have 1 open position in our existing business resource team. So this would be a business manager that really goes out, spends a lot of time on the road, just meeting with companies, understanding what their issues are, connecting them to resources, things like that. And then, I think as we go along, we'll have a few others, similar positions.
Very good. Clint O'Neill, Executive Vice President of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Clint, pleasure having you with us. Thanks for the work you do. I know our team and I, we get to interact with you and Catherine and a number of other folks, Braden and a number of other folks as well in your Small Business and Entrepreneurship Division particularly. We appreciate the work that you all do. We appreciate your leadership particularly. And we look forward to continuing that work to make Arkansas the best place in the world to do business.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all for joining. This has been another episode. We're still trying to figure out if we call it episode or what we call it, but another rendition, maybe that's what it's called, of Game Changers. Thank you all for joining.